Hello, everyone, and welcome to LaKesha and Friends. I'm so happy to have my friend, Miss Tomika Rayford, on today. And if you guys follow her, you know she does not come on live very often. So we have full advantage of this opportunity and ask all the questions. So welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, there's not a lot to tell. I'm not that interesting, honestly. I'm not. Just a woman living in America. When people ask me to describe myself, I often say that I'm free, and they roll their eyes like, "What does that mean?" What does that mean? Um, it means that I don't subscribe to anything. I don't, religion or, political affiliations. I just subscribe to what's right for me. If I feel like cussing, I curse. You know,
Yeah.
um, I say what's on my mind. It's not always popular, right? But I say it. So I advocate hard for freedom for other people.
Mm.
I'm a big advocate of freedom,
Yeah.
and I think so often people perceive freedom as something someone else can give you, right?
Right.
I had to figure out how to give myself absolute freedom, in all things. Um, Not to have a justification or an excuse for anything that I do.
Yeah.
That if that's what I did in that moment, then that's what I felt like doing.
Right.
So
Right.
that's the freedom I subscribe to.
That's awesome. And you're very passionate. So you're very passionate
Oh, yeah.
about civic engagement issues as well.
Mhm.
And I think like I don't even know how we met. It had to be like 10 years ago, at least, like at a workshop in Selma.
Yeah, someone we have a mutual friend, Mark Bailey.
Mhm.
I think we met through him, and he knew you were doing something in Selma, and again, I think it was something around voting.
Yeah, I think
And you invited me, and I drove down, and yeah, it was good.
yeah. And we've been like connected ever since.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, and so one of the reasons like I wanted you to come on is because I know that you are so passionate about civic engagement and just to kind of hear your thoughts on like why voting is important. But before we get to that, like you and I were kind of going back and forth about the debates last night, and you shared that you didn't watch the debate. So share with us like what was your reason for not watching?
For me, mental health and just peace of mind was more important, right? I
Yeah.
just didn't. I knew it was going to be crazy, right?
Yes.
Because I knew who was involved. Okay, I
Yeah.
say what I knew who was involved, and my watching wasn't going to change that,
Right.
right?
Right.
So nor was my watching going to change who I vote for,
Right.
right? And so there was no value in it for me other to inflict emotional and mental trauma,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so I gave it a pass. I think the debate should have been people that are still conflicted within themselves about what to do.
Yeah.
That's not where I am with it. So
Which is so confusing at this point in the president for the presidential because the candidates are like polar opposites. So like when people say like they're conflicted, like for me it's just hard to understand what that means
right.
because they're so different. It's not like they're so similar that you're trying to parse the differences and figure out. It's just like there's one direction and then there's another direction. So it's like
Correct.
direction. So what advice are you giving to people who are conflicted and they don't know if they're going to vote or they don't know?
I think people need to first be honest.
Yeah.
They really think that we have options. No, we only have one option because the alternative is unthinkable,
Yeah.
right? So our only option is to do the right thing in this case. And we know um, the country, not only this country, but the world knows the toxicity and the level of hurt, harm, and danger that we've been at risk with this present administration,
Yeah.
right? And so to keep that administration is an alternative. We
Yeah.
have the option to be decent. We have the option to be better. We
Yeah.
have the option to face our demons in the mirror and say, this is not who we want to be, right?
Yeah.
no, there is no, oh, which option? No, stop.
Stop.
No, then we only have the one option.
Right. I'm just reading like some of the global headlines because in the mornings, like I have that's my social media setup where Facebook is like all of my friends and like the people who, are just crazy. Like I just unfriend them. Like I just can't do it. But then I go to Twitter. Like Twitter is like I hear what the world is saying.
Right.
And that's where I get, the other perspective. And just reading like the international headlines about the debates last night and what other countries think of us, it's just like, wow, is this where we are? Because we used to be like considered like the creme de la creme. And now we were just like, yo, like, what's wrong with y'all?
Right. But if you are truly the creme de la creme, nothing that could happen would really change that if that's who you are at your core, right?
Ooh, that's
so
deep.
that's not who we are.
Right.
This country was built on other things, right? Now that being the creme de la creme, the people that go in and fight for democracy for others, that's been our mask, right? That's been the face. If we can't have that kind of option for democracy for people at home, what are we doing abroad, right?
And that is so true because when you think about even like when like Black people went and fought in Vietnam and went and fought in all these wars where they're fighting for freedom from other countries, but then you come home and you can't get a job or you're getting spit on or you can't buy a house, but you can go to other countries and die for their freedom. So I think that's a great point. Like we've always kind of said that we were up here, but then when you look at just like the standard of living free in this country, like it has not ever been for everyone.
This country has not extended the hand of democracy for its own citizens that it proclaims to go into other countries and fight for other people. And so America was built on some very dark and nasty things. It was built on oppression. It was built on human bondage. It was built on war, right? Yeah. So we can't claim to be this great heroic entity and not have it show up what your roots are. Right. Our roots are showing, girl. When we went on relaxers, your roots. That's your hair time.
Yes. We're definitely going through like getting ready for the big chop. Like that really does seem like where we are.
I did the big chop.
I did it so far.
Huh?
I said, how are you liking it so far?
I'm loving it. I'm like, this is my hair texture, you know. But for me, I like the cleanliness of it. I like that every time I get in the shower, I get to wash my hair. Like every single time. I used to envy white people that option. Yeah. But every single time I get in the shower, I get to wash my hair. And I love it, honey. It is the most freeing thing. And I don't think I lacked the courage to do it. I was just lazy.
Yeah.
I thought it would be more work. It's not.
Yeah. And I think, and that's so interesting because, and I think that kind of mirrors like where we are in society, that more people are embracing their freedom because you do see more people going natural. And I have this really bad habit of like playing in my hair. And people are just like, stop touching your hair. And it's because like I started wearing relaxers when I was young. And until like in my 40s, like I was always relaxed. And I had this thing where my hair had to be perfect. Like it had to be made, don't touch so I never really got to touch my own hair. And so now like I'm fascinated, like this is my hair. Like so when I'm working or I'm thinking like I'm touching my hair, and people are just like, why are you? And it's like, because it's my hair and I never got to feel it.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I have a picture of my mom and I when I was a toddler, and I had this little baby fro, and my mother and I don't have the same hair texture at all. Sure, hers won't do the fro thing, but it won't fro. And she was like, "What did you do?" I was like, "I cut all my hair off," and it's barely been a month. So I shaved it, like it gone. And she just could not, because I've had a relaxer since I was 12. Right?
Wow.
And I was like, and I showed her the picture. I was like, this little black baby right here is back. Oh my God, where did you get that? But I cannot wait for my hair to start reaching for the sun.
Yeah.
Cannot wait. And I never had color, right? And
Mm.
so I see my gray, you know,
Yeah.
and I'm loving everything about it. I I I don't plan to keep getting it cut. I
Right.
want to grow and get as big as possible. You know,
Yeah.
I can't wait for that. I really can't.
That's awesome. And I think that, when we think about like our personal freedom, and
Mhm.
then we kind of, I guess, make the connection to our civic engagement, a lot of people don't feel like, which is very interesting to me, that participating in the system is a way of demonstrating freedom. Because it's kind of like, I don't want to be a part of the system, or the man has the system rigged, without understanding that our ability to participate is an expression of our freedom.
Unfortunately, and this is where I gripe with Black middle class Americans, right? Um, there is something about growing away from where you started
Mm,
that you can forget some things,
yeah,
right? And you become comfortable in your lifestyle, and you've surrounded yourself with things materially, and you're feeling like you're good,
yeah,
right? True freedom that you enjoy for yourself, the very nature of it demands that you want that for others,
right,
right?
right,
So in this space, you have to advocate, right? When I go to vote, I am advocating for the freedom of others. You
mm,
know, no matter how comfortable I think I am, no matter I've been blessed to make some right decision, whatever got me here. So whatever. There's still some people that need my help.
yeah,
And when you go and vote, when you do things that you don't necessarily feel that you need to do, that means you're respecting the agency of others.
right,
That doesn't have the voice that you have, or don't feel like they have it.
right,
Oftentimes, um, people in need, or what we call low income, or people that are struggling, don't see the value for themselves.
right,
So they feel like I've been left behind. They don't care about me. I'm just not going to participate, right?
mm,
We have to participate more. We have to reaffirm for them that you matter,
yeah,
right? When
yeah,
I was the most disappointing and disheartening thing or conversations that I've ever witnessed on social media has been this self-defeating talk about people on food stamps,
mm,
right? Like, how dare you, right?
yeah,
When I'm in line and I see some sister buying steaks and shrimp or whatever, I'd be like, eat on, honey, eat. I'd be celebrating, like, oh, wait.
yes,
Because I tell people all the time, if I am poor,
hmm,
I don't have anything, I don't have a car, I'm catching a ride to the store, I don't make a lot of money, but I got food stamps. Can I please have that steak?
yeah, yeah,
Can I have that one pleasure in life?
yeah,
Can I eat that lobster tail without you having a food? You
right,
know,
right,
can you have something? Are
right.
you going home to your garage and your can
Your fully furnished house, like all of your,
you have this little bit, please?
yeah,
If these food stamps are going to give me this much pleasure, can I have that?
right,
Right? So I don't envy people that. I'm glad whatever tax dollars, and if they use Google, understand that the percentage of what you pay into the system that goes into food stamps are so minuscule, right?
right,
Be glad to give it, right? I pay into a system that as an adult I've never had to withdraw from.
hmm,
But as a child,
yeah.
spent food stamps out of the book. You know,
That's
not
back in the day when they were in the book, right?
in the book. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? So I understand what that feels like. And I don't, people talk about the abuse of the welfare system or food stamps, and they, oh, that's not the same, food stamp, whatever. Here's the thing: there are far more people that benefit from it
Than
than
that.
than abuse it.
So here's my question, because one of the issues I have, especially when we talk about like getting out the vote, why is it that people in lower income areas that are more dependent on the system and who need the system more, we spend less energy engaging them in the voting process so that they can have a say in the leadership? Because like whenever there's like conservatives in power, one of their first things is they want to cut social benefits. Why is it that we have such a hard time making the connection to that community? Like, hey, we need you to vote because your vote is going to allow you to continue receiving these benefits.
Because I think the collective consciousness of those people, that they are somehow being left behind, has some truth in it on many levels.
Mm,
We don't perceive their value in
right.
the moment when we're organizing, when we're, doing these things. That's why I like to celebrate LaTosha Brown's work with the Black Voters Matter. That
Yeah.
is important work.
Yeah.
What you see them doing, you see them going into those areas that you're talking about, motivating and mobilizing those people.
Right.
And so often, unfortunately, people think that's because they don't agree with everything that someone is doing, they can't celebrate what is
Something you're
actually
doing. Yeah.
being done. And that is great work that they're doing,
Yeah.
because they go into these places and tell them, reaffirm for them, you have a voice,
Yeah.
use it,
Yeah.
you but to the point of your question, too often we don't see their value, and they perceive that we don't see their value, and so a lot of times they're shut out of the narrative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When it affects them, and like you said,
Yes.
when I vote and when I think about who I'm electing, I'm thinking about my brothers and sisters who
That's
don't have the same opportunity. Because
right.
I feel like with my business, whether the economy is doing well or bad, like I know that I have a level of stability. Whereas there are people who don't have that same stability, and they are dependent upon who is in office for them to be able to feed their family, to have a place to live, to even like continue to have job opportunities. So
Right.
transitioning a little bit. So you're from Selma, Alabama.
I am. That is home. That's where I grew up.
That is home. That is where, the civil rights movement, that is where like all the action happened. Why? Why in Selma do we have such a hard time improving? Like when they were celebrating, I think it was like the 50-year march, and you're looking at Selma and you're like, yo, but what has changed in 50 years? Why do we have such a hard, why is it so hard in Selma? What's happening?
Well, with my sister being in this mirror race, I have been a lot closer to the process than I ever dreamt that I wanted to be, right?
Right.
I have found out things I never wanted to know. But I tell people all the time, pain is the provider of wisdom, not age. You know,
Yeah.
you learn about things through what hurt you,
Yeah.
right? And so I never wanted to be this close, but I think being this close to it was necessary for me to understand the level of dysfunction that is happening there
Right.
in Selma. And I've often said, so goes Selma, so goes the rest of the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
In Selma, what we have seen historically, and more so recently, I think the folk coming off of the civil rights movement, that generation,
Yeah.
understood better than this generation the importance of knowing what you're voting about,
Oh, yeah.
having the requisite intelligence around how city government operates
Right.
was important to them. And those people took that very seriously, right? And what I found in Selma is that The dysfunction is around popularity and
Oh,
not around what's best. So
and
I like
context.
I
Yeah,
like this personality, but what I should be respecting is this mentality, right?
right,
And then, but so what's happening in Selma, in a lot of spaces, this is not true for everyone. Everything is not always true for everybody.
right.
There's a lot of um, ignorance around how local government works
Mm,
and why is it important to understand what your candidates are advocating for, right?
right.
And how that impacts you,
Yeah,
right? You have to see yourself in the narrative. What will this do for me? What will this do for my community? How will this affect my city? You know, and there's a lack in generational spaces of that in Selma, that um, people 30 years ago had a better understanding of than they
right,
do now. And it's I hate to see dysfunction in predominantly Black spaces.
right,
I
right.
don't like it because it's an ugly truth, and we have to face it,
Yeah,
right? We have to look at that in the mirror. And I know that publicly we don't like to talk about um, skin folk and kin folk,
right,
right?
right. All skin folk are not kin folk, right?
And so we don't want to have those conversations, especially not publicly,
Right.
but they're necessary, right? Because sometimes our kinfolk, our skin folk,
Mm,
just aren't right.
yeah.
And you can't keep elevating people to spaces that they're not fit for.
Just
Right.
because they look like you, even if they
Right.
don't have your interests at heart. Yeah.
Right. Or just because they're related to you, or you've been knowing them a long time, or they're friends of my family. You know what I'm saying? You got to get away from that and
Right.
get to a place of healthy discourse.
Yeah.
And I am praying for Selma to vote in their best interest.
Yeah.
Because when you look at the arc of the last 30 years, to your point, the last 50, what has changed has been um, more of a dwindling, right, of
Yeah.
resources, of level of education, quality of
Right.
education. And so when you look at a space and say, I view this as a reduction of the collective IQ, it causes tremors inside of you,
Mm-hmm.
right? For me, it feels like Selma is on such a precipice, right? There's
Right.
such a crossroads that they don't choose a progressive future at this point,
Right.
that they will be left out of the narrative for the rest of the world forever. Like the door will close on them. And it's disheartening because I know I don't have a vote in that space.
Right.
But I continue to support Maya, my sister, because I've watched her do the work
Mm-hmm.
and I understand her heart. And she's truly selfless in this, right? Um, and she will be a great leader
Yeah.
for Selma, and they will see progress. But that's what the people of Selma has to decide for themselves.
Yeah. And I think for me, like that's the hardest part, being from Alabama and the home of like the civil rights struggle. And you go back to some of these places where,
Right.
outside of that space, people elevate it and it's just like, oh yeah, Selma, Alabama, people come in for commemorative events. But then when you look at the schools and when you look at the voter turnout and when you look at just the everyday life of the people who live there, like your heart kind of breaks because you're like, the world is like celebrating your space. However,
They
there's
don't invest in that space.
exactly there's no investment in making sure that the other 360 days of the
Right.
year that the people have opportunity.
So, people with connections or connectivity and people with power and
Yeah.
people with money, they're going to invest in spaces where there's a return.
Right.
And for them to consider investing in that space, there has to be a necessary infrastructure.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
have to see the quality of leadership available in that space to even have the conversation about, okay, how do we get you all involved?
Yeah.
Considering what Selma means to the world, LaKesha, what symbolically,
Yeah.
right, is when civil rights is literally the crown jewel of the world.
Right.
And that whole narrative of everything that happened on the bridge and the debates that's going on right now today. Selma is not a part of Alabama tourism. And you have to ask yourself, how is that?
How
So
is
Selma
it?
does not benefit from the state of Alabama tourism.
Wow.
Economically, Selma is not benefiting from its story. This is one of I heard in 2018, I heard Congresswoman Terry Sewell say that Selma is one of the few places where, if not the only place where civil rights and the Civil War happened.
Wow.
So in Selma, annually, there was a Civil War commemoration.
Yeah.
It's called the Battle of Selma.
Yeah.
And then the Civil Rights commemoration. It was called the Selma Jubilee. And this one little city in the heart of Alabama has the Battle of Selma, and it is the cradle of the civil rights movement. And it does not benefit economically
From
from
either.
those truths. No. Mm-mm.
I see that's what's always been so confusing to me. But I think that it does go back to what you were initially saying about having the infrastructure and the leadership to be able to advocate for, those advantages. Because, and I'm not even going to get into what I heard about the movie Selma being made in Selma, and like I was just like listening because I was in Alabama working in economic development at the time and just asking some questions about how, why does Selma not have money? Like I'm not understanding, and just listening to, and I was just like, wow,
right.
We're not going to go there. But yeah, I know people are probably watching like, okay, what does this have to do with voting? But that's the impact of your vote. Right. Because you're not voting in people who understand how to make these deals and who have a vision for the long term of these communities, then you do have situations where opportunities come and they take short-term gains without looking at long-term benefit for the city, whereas they may profit. So they're good, but then the city still doesn't have the opportunity to flourish and to grow.
What's amazing is you and I haven't spoken in months.
Yeah.
So we haven't had this conversation. So there's nothing pre-planned about this. And you're touching on all of the, you know what I'm saying? Like, this wouldn't have been better if I had told you, say this. You know, I have, other than a text message inviting me here, we haven't had a conversation about this. Yeah. And yet you are right on the source of it, right? Yeah. You're at the heart of the matter. And I know, Selmians are immersed in their feelings about who they want to vote for. And they're not paying attention to the national narrative. There are people all over the world that want to help Selma. Yeah. And there are people who are watching this race saying, please get it right. We're ready to jump in and help, but please get it right. And they know the people involved. Yeah. People with money and power are not going to go into spaces where they already know what they know. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, yeah. So in this moment, when you make the wrong choice, you got to live with that choice forever. Yeah. Because now they're like, we're done. Yeah. We're never going to get it right. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? You have to understand that more than just you know the truth about who these candidates are. Yeah. And when one of the candidates has a record to recommend them that people can look at and be like, no.
Right. Like houseware.
So, and that's not saying anything disparaging about that candidate, but when your record is your record,
yeah,
that's your record.
yeah,
Right? And so when people, you may look at him like, I know such and such, I like him, I've known him all my life, got my vote. Business people are saying, no,
they don't have my money though.
That's not the leader for
Right.
that's not the one we're willing to work with,
Right.
Necessarily, right? And when I said earlier, so goes Selma, so goes the world. And I'm looking at this duality of toxicity, right?
Yeah.
There's two things I'm hoping they go right in October and in November, right? Because it's scary. The alternative is scary. And the best thing I did, my family, my mom still lives in Selma. 90% of my family lives in Selma. But had I never left Selma, I wouldn't know what healthy discourse looks like. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm in North Mississippi. I literally live in Republican residential, right? And I have to pay attention to every candidate on every level for every reason, right?
Right.
Just because I live here, I can't throw up in my hands and say, oh, I'm in a red state. It's going to be what it's going to be.
Right.
Well, you have to participate.
Yeah.
You have to. And if everybody took the attitude that I have to participate, maybe things will change.
Yeah. And I think if everyone took the attitude of not just participating with my party, but actually looking at every candidate, looking at every issue, every amendment, then I don't think we would have as many red states and blue states because I think that there are, I don't know if I can say this right now, but there have been some good Republicans and there have been some good Democrats. Like right now, like, I don't know about y'all Republicans. Like I'm just a little.
We had good Republicans pre-Tea Party.
Right. Yes, that's when they lost their mind. Like that's when they just
they lost their party. So we had what I like to call old school Republicans. Right. And you understood their conservatism, right?
Yeah.
But since the inception of the Tea Party, we understand that this conservative is extreme Jesus and racist.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Both of those things. Yeah. And so you have a community of poor white people and middle class white people consistently going to the polls and voting against their own economic best interest.
And that is so prevalent in the South. Like that's what like baffles me because I'm like, but you guys are voting against your own self-interest. Like if you truly look at the platform and the position of the people that you are supporting, like they're talking about you. Like when they're trying to disenfranchise Black people, like y'all may not have our skin color, but y'all have the same usually like economic condition that we have that they're trying to disenfranchise, and they don't.
Mary Trump closed her book like a boss. To say that here's a man that has the support of people that he wouldn't even talk to. He would be caught dead having a conversation with. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So he don't even like you. This man has complete disdain for you, and you are putting him on a pedestal. And it's like, really?
Yeah.
It's astonishing.
Yeah.
And when we had that forum in Selma, I said one of the most important things I had ever learned was to take my morality to church and my economy to the polls. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And Republicans, poor and middle class Republicans, take their morality to the polls and they take their money to church.
Yeah.
So they put God in control of their dollars, which aren't going to grow in church, and they take their morality to the polls, which is not going to grow at the polls. And so they have did this trade with Jesus and money, right?
Yeah.
And they keep getting it wrong.
Mm.
I don't think there is a party that exists that is in the best interest of Black Americans, right?
Right.
Um, but I would say uh, liberal or democratic parties is more aligned with my advocacy for freedom for
Right.
and the protection of democracy,
Yeah.
right? And LaKesha, I don't know if you know one, and I'm not a history buff, but I don't know any great civilization or empire in our history that didn't fall.
Right. Yeah. And that's what I've been hearing a lot of people kind of talk about is like, we might be on the verge of our collapse. And,
Mhm.
I don't think a lot of people are really prepared for that conversation. Like, what does it look like if our democracy fails? Because it is an experiment. Like, this is not something that has ever been done and sustained at this level. So what does it look like if we no longer have this democracy? And I don't think that people were prepared until we had a president that came and threatened the norms, because
Right.
everyone kind of assumed that it was always going to be this way.
Right.
And like you said, like if we get it wrong in November, like the whole system could truly collapse. And I don't think people are prepared for that. So, while they're kind of, Joe Biden isn't the perfect candidate, he may not be the perfect candidate. But if you like this experiment that we call democracy, you might want to give him a closer look, because otherwise, like, we truly have the opportunity to devolve into something totally different.
We have. I mean, we have already, just in the last 4 years.
Yeah.
Um, the thing that Black people always knew was right there beneath the surface in America came bubbling over the top, right?
Yeah.
We saw I don't think Southern Black people was as shocked because we've always witnessed overt racism. It's always been on display there for us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I tell people all the time, you know how many nigga bitches I've been in my life?
Right. Right.
And I concern myself with who's calling me that.
Yeah.
I concern myself with who's writing laws and making policies. What are
Yeah.
you doing to restrict my freedoms? Does it restrict me as a person, as a woman of color?
Yeah.
What are you doing specifically? Because what's coming out of your mouth, that's a distraction.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not going to get worked up about what you're saying. I
Right.
want to know what you're doing.
Right.
What are you putting on the Senate floor?
But and that's always been my thing, like, because, and I know, like, I've kept you way over the time I've requested, but like people like always want people to stop being racist. And my thing is, like, I don't care how you feel about me. You though, like, I care about if you have the ability to stop me from getting a mortgage, if you're charging me more for the interest rate on my car, if you are stopping me from getting a job, if you're making laws that, however you feel at home, however you feel in your heart, like, I honestly, like, I don't care. And I think we put such a premium on trying to make people like us and make people accept. I don't care if you like me or if you accept me, but what you're not going to do is, like you said, stop me from living free. Right. Stop me from having the opportunity to have the job or get the house or buy the car that I want because of the color of my skin. Now, when you start doing that, that's when we have problems. But I think, like, our desire to end racism is what kind of keeps us from moving the needle, because we focus so much on the feelings and not on the policy.
Right. Like when I bought my home 10 years ago, I had a man sit me down and tell me that it'll only take 7 to 10 years to pay a mortgage. And I was blown away because I'd always been taught, you get a 15-year or 30-year, and that's how long it takes.
Yeah.
And when he taught me that, it's been very important to me to teach that to others. Mm-hmm. And I know people ask me, why don't you charge people for that? I didn't have to buy that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I don't know that I have the power. I'm sure I don't, as an individual, to change how mortgage interest is calculated. Mm-hmm. But I have the power to circumvent the amount of interest my people pay.
Right.
By teaching them.
Girl,
right?
if people knew, if you looked at the amortization schedule and how much you pay in interest over the course of a mortgage.
Yeah. You paid for the asking price on your house almost 3 times.
Yes. Yes.
To start that, you need to understand what compound interest is and how it works. And so when I got a relative or something, I'm buying me a house, I'm like, this is what you do. This is how you
Set your payments up.
look. You don't want to pay them that. You're going to pay them some of it, but
Yeah.
you don't want to pay them that.
Right.
And I've had so many people tell me, you need to, why don't you start charging? I don't want to charge for that.
Right. Because our people suffer from a lack of knowledge.
We do. Mm-hmm.
And that's always been my thing, because people are always like, why do you write so many books and why are you always share? And it's like, because like there's so much information we don't know.
Yeah.
When I was a financial advisor with American Express, and I learned just like what people been doing with their money, and I'm just like, yo, like y'all been doing this for 100 years, and my people been over here just
Right.
like barely saving 10 cents.
Right.
It's like, we truly understood like the value of interest and, the future value of, like, it's so much that we don't know. And I do think that, having people who are in office who are putting the infrastructure together, because that even goes back to like your schools. Like if you don't have people who are in leadership who are ensuring that the schools on both sides of the city are properly funded. Like it breaks my heart to see, like you can tell when you're in the Black part of a city or when you're in the white part of a city. And when you look at the schools and just what they teach in the schools there's no reason a curriculum should be different.
It should not.
Resources should be different based on where you live.
Right.
But it is. And we don't make the connection between those issues and voting.
And a lot of times when you have a limited income and you're in these predominantly Black neighborhoods, a lot of times you have to choose between keeping the lights on, keeping your family fed, or keeping the upkeep on the house.
Yeah.
Right? And sometimes one of those things have to be let go. And so the paint is chipped and the roof is falling in. And there are things that are happening because you live with limited resources. And when you drive out in that neighborhood, it doesn't look as well as the next neighborhood where there's a lack of resources, know? Right. And we have to stop pushing this narrative. Oh, Black people, they dirty, they lazy, they don't want to do this and do that. Be fair.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Be fair. You have to choose between paying the water bill, getting medication, eating, right? Yeah. And then as people get older, their children move away and start their lives, then mama 70, she can't, houses need to be remodeled sometimes.
Yeah, she can't go out and pressure wash the house.
She can't pressure wash the house. You know what I'm saying? When things break, she can find another fix, but she can't fix the thing, right? The money's not there to fix the thing. And sometimes she'll be, oh, it's fine, I'll get back, and people start to slide. And we need to understand that, LaKesha, these things are not equitable.
Right.
So it might break our hearts, but when you process it and understand why it is that way, you have a better lens, I think. But I'm hopeful for this November. I'm gonna text you what I think the outcome of the race is gonna be. But I'm hopeful.
I'm hopeful too. So before we go, and thank you so much for spending this extra time with me, because like we don't.
This looks like you got some more time. Look,
I told you, like since I got you, like I'm keeping you for a little while.
That's fine. I don't have to be in till 4:00.
Okay, good. But it's been like such a rich conversation, because I know that like we have some similar passions, and I just really want other people to understand and to start connecting some of the dots, because I don't think that those are the conversations that we have when we talk about voting. Most of the time we talk about it in the sense of a candidate that you need to vote for, or you need to vote because your ancestors died for you to have the right to vote, which I understand all of that, but people also need to understand how their vote affects what happens in their communities and the communities in their city, or even the communities in their state. Like your vote is about more than just who the next president's going to be, but it's also about how resources are allocated and how, schools are funded. And even when you look at different bonds that they put up, like, okay, what communities or what municipalities are going to benefit from these bonds before you vote on them. And we don't have those conversations. And so a lot of times we go into the polls and we're ignorant about those things. The only thing we know is who we voting for president. But it's a whole list of things on that ballot that we have like no real knowledge about, and they benefit on us not knowing. Because even when we don't make a choice, then the people who are making choices are getting their way.
Right. And the people that are reading and paying attention and searching, right?
Yeah.
Those are the people that it is perceived everything seems to go their way. No, they're just knowledgeable.
Right.
Their give a damn was oriented the right way, right?
Yeah.
They care about what's going to impact them. And so they do the work. They spend time with understanding the process.
Mm-hmm.
We just want to understand the popularity or what sounds good. You know what I'm saying? And that's not always good. I'm going to tell you, in 2008, Obama earned my vote over Hillary in the run, in the primaries to get the Democratic number, to be the number for the Democrats, because she had my vote. He came to Selma in 2008 to the Jubilee, and I wasn't impressed. I drove from here to Selma because I knew he was going to be there. And I knew that was a space I could move in to get to see him.
Yeah.
So they were both running, to get the nomination, but I wasn't impressed. And then I started to pay attention. And in the end, I was still living in Tennessee and we had the early vote. He earned my vote,
Yeah.
Because for me, Hillary represented so much about what I loved about women, right? LaKesha, I don't mind telling you, and this is me and my freedom, and I know, you're a church girl. Our morals may be,
It's okay.
I don't care if Bill had 20 interns line up outside of his door.
Right.
He was doing his job. Bill getting off with an intern didn't affect me.
Right.
It didn't stop him from doing his job. And that's Bill's morality. That's not Tomika's morality.
Right.
And
that was their marriage. And so if she decides to stay, like, that's her. Because I'm
not going to let you get off, destroy my plans. Ain't nobody going nowhere. I got plans. As soon as this is over, you on the clock. You know what I mean?
Right.
I admired her for saying, hey, I got plans of my own. I supported you getting here. Guess what? You better take this ride with me. Right? And there were so many white women in particular that were angry with her for not leaving. How could she? You know what I'm saying? You wanted her to leave for you.
Yeah, but most of them stayed in relationships with their husbands, were doing more than getting head. Like, come on now. Come on.
Right. And then Hillary had gone on to be senator. She had done real work as first lady. She advocated hard for universal health care as first lady. You know what I'm saying? And at the time, I loved that both she and her husband were savvy when it came to the economy. And they surrounded themselves with economists in their cabinet. You know what I'm saying? And for the first time in our history, since the debt, we calculated the national debt, the clock in New York was turned off for his administration. I was living in Detroit at the time. I didn't have a car. I was riding city bus. I could literally quit a job in the morning and have another job that afternoon.
Wow.
When he was in office, I worked 3 jobs, right? Wow. And I caught a bus to all of them. But we could all eat. There are things that happened in the Clinton administration that I absolutely did not like.
Yeah.
There were things that happened in Obama's administration that I wish had gotten done to fix some of the things that happened in Clinton's administration. But there's no saving grace in this administration, right?
Yeah.
You can't just say, oh, there's a thing. No, 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 no. It's toxic all the way through, LaKesha.
All levels, every level, every
It,
level.
it's bad, right? So what can you say? Was like, oh, well, and I hear the lie, right? And I think we all heard it. You heard it too when
Yeah.
he came into office. Well, Trump is responsible. No, 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 no. Economists made it clear. No matter who was elected, the economy was going to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he wasn't responsible for the economy.
Yeah.
That was residual from Obama's administration, right?
Yeah.
So,
And it's crazy because I hear people say, even with him, that, he's done more for Black people and my thought process on that is like, no matter what you have done for the Black community, it does not take away from everything that you have done to hurt people of color. So not just Black people, but the immigrants that you have in cages, the children who have been separated from their families. And I don't think that, people are capable of like weighing issues. So it's like, yeah, you may have done these good things. Like a broken clock is right twice a day. Right. However, let's look at the other 10 hours of the day that the clock is wrong. Like, how do we weigh those things? And I think that that's what we have to look at with all candidates, because even with Hillary, like, yeah, when you look at the good that the Clinton administration did, yeah, there was some bad, but I don't think people were capable of weighing. It's just like, oh, well, we see the bad. And they're doing the same thing with Joe Biden, like, oh, well, look at what he's done. He supported, the 90-something crime bill. And it's like, okay, so we put that on a bad scale. But then we look at the good things that he's done. How do you weigh those things?
And I think people need to stop taking these, what are they? Like these headlines, these
clickbait.
Yeah, stop taking that and building narratives on it and read and research. Because the 94 crime bill got done because Black leaders advocated for it.
Mm-hmm.
Go look back at Chicago, New York, Baltimore, and what was happening in those spaces with crack.
Yes.
And those leaders advocating hard on Washington, do something, do something, do something. The crime is out of hand, the drugs are out of hand, And then, so the 94 crime bill was overreach, LaKesha. And Joe Biden was the chair of the committee that got that done. But where did it start?
Yeah.
It started from Black leaders in major cities saying something has got to give. Help us, help us, help us. Yeah, it was overreach. It was. And when you heard me say there were some things I was disappointed that the Obama administration didn't get done, that was one of them. But I don't throw away the totality of what he was able to accomplish as a president with that one thing that I never heard Obama say that he was going to fix that.
Right.
That was me.
Yeah.
That was me wanting that to be fixed. I'm like, all right, you made the man that, chaired this thing. You're
yeah. Yeah.
So y'all gonna talk about that?
Right.
So I mean, come on. And when that didn't get done, and even a little bit he did get done, especially with prison reform, Trump was quick to roll that back.
Yeah.
And so that progress was erased with private prisons. And again, a lot of people don't know that he had gotten that done because they don't read the right things.
Yeah.
They don't pay attention.
And I think, if there's no other takeaway, I just pray that people will be more attentive to the process and not, like you said, vote based on popularity. Because I feel like, especially in small towns, that's why leadership is not as strong as it can be, because a lot of times, like, we vote based on popularity, and it's like, yo, like, if you're voting for the mayor, does your mayor know how to read a budget? Does your mayor know how to put together
the one that they had before? Okay, no, okay.
Right. But it's like, yo, I know, Joe Sanford, and we've been friends, since 92. So he's going to make a good mayor. And it's like, yeah, but what business skills does he have? Like, what has he done professionally? I say he's a good guy. Okay, he's a good guy. However, like, and I think that we need to be able to do that with all of our candidates.
Transparent, right? What is the orientation of his integrity?
Yeah.
What is their ability to lead? And I think this is where church folk get it wrong all the time. Just because you're in the pulpit doesn't make you a good leader. It makes you a good orator. You can probably speak well,
right.
Well, people, but that does not make you a good leader. So I don't know, but I wish people. I know for a fact that in both elections, that local elections everywhere and nationally, too many people are going to the polls without enough information.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. And they should.
Yeah. And I know what different offices do, because, and I said before, I've been in forums where people are asking a candidate about, an issue that they have no control over. Like, if you don't know what the mayor does versus what your state representative does versus what your congressional representative does, and you're mad at the mayor because they're not doing something that your congressperson should be doing. So
or your council person should be doing.
Exactly. So we have to be like more informed about the process overall. So I'm hopeful that,
I am too. I'm hopeful, but I'm a little guarded and afraid.
I'm very afraid.
We sat on, I've been I was a part of a book club for a little over a decade. And it was these women, Black women, middle class, successful in their fields. It was a small group of us. We would go to one another's home. And Clinton and Trump were running, right? And we were sitting on my patio, discussing topics and sipping wine. And I said to them that Donald Trump isn't interested in being president of the United States. And that he was going to become president of the United States. And they were like, when there's something that happens in the minds of Black people, when you say that this country is far more sexist than it is racist. Black folk don't believe there's a sin on earth greater than racism. And it's pretty bad.
Yeah.
But the country specifically is far more sexist. And that's just not something only men get to be. There are women that have that attitude as well.
Yeah.
This country is far more sexist than it is racist. And they was like, they were like, no, she's going to win. I'm like, she's not going to win. I said, because America suffers from the big dick syndrome. What? I was like, they go around with this collective consciousness that a woman can't be the leader of this country. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We can't have a man,
Yeah.
It's men and women.
Yeah. Yeah.
So sexism don't just come from men. It comes from men and women. There are women that perceive that as well. And they don't understand there's a problem with that. What what I know, what the world knows, on day one, had Hillary Clinton been elected president, she would have been the most qualified president on term one, day one in the history of America.
Yeah.
Having been senator, having been secretary of state, having been first lady, she would have been from a resume, right? The most qualified, term one, day one, the most qualified person to be president in the history of this country would have been a woman.
Right. And now we have the least qualified person
because America couldn't perceive or conceive that a woman could lead. And everything that she told us
was true. Yeah, now she's just sipping back, sipping tea. Like I tried to tell y'all.
I'm trying to tell you. I'm afraid that will repeat itself in Selma.
Yeah.
That we will see that play out. Because Maya, as a councilwoman for the last 4 years, she's the only council person that spent real time with the budget. She went through 3,000 pages of documents on her own and submit. Oh, the girl, she's
bad.
bad.
She is. She is.
That Maya is sharp.
For everyone who doesn't know, Maya is Tomika's sister, and she is running for mayor of Selma. And she would be the first Black woman to be mayor. The first woman Black woman to be elected if she's elected. So if y'all know anybody in Selma, y'all make sure that they are voting and they're voting for Maya, because
it was historic that as a woman she made it to the runoff.
Right. Wow.
That was historic. A woman had never made it that far in a mayoral election in Selma in this 200 years. And so yes, honey, yes.
200 years, that's still a first. Like that's cool.
Yes. So she's intelligent. She's educated, and she's such a hard worker and so dedicated. And I hope Selma has the courage to do what the rest of the country did not.
Yeah.
And, elect her to be the leader that I know she is and can be. So yeah. We'll see though.
Yay. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your day for this conversation. Do you have any parting words for our viewers?
I think they're tired of me.
I got it.
Tired of me now. No, I don't. I just I think it's important that we understand who we've been, who we are, and who we can become.
Yeah. Well, I thank you for your friendship, and I thank you for coming on today. And you guys make sure, I don't know if y'all can follow her, but check her out if you can. I don't know if your page is private or not.
It is not private, but you probably, oh my God, don't invite people to my page.
Okay, don't go to her page. Just comment if you have any questions.
Girl, the things are on my page. The church people will be like, "Why would LaKesha talk?"
Yeah, she's free. Like we are free. Like I don't know what y'all doing, but we live in free.
We're free people.
I just live free in the church. She lives free outside of the church.
Right.
But thank you again.
Oh, thank you, sweetheart. It's been a pleasure. I'm like.